Hi, I'm Rory Green from XR today, bringing you the latest in news and conversation from the XR space. Today, I am joined by two members of VirtualLeap, an innovative healthcare XR solutions provider focusing on cognitive training and evaluation. Thank you both so much for joining me today, and it would be great to get an intro from you both and what role you play in the company.
So my name is Viana. I'm responsible for partnerships. I'm actually a scientist, biochemist by training, did almost 10 years of research a little bit across the world, and then was working on drug development and discovery for a couple of other years, and then joined the team at VirtualLeap, where I'm basically responsible for business development partnerships, especially the ones for clinical development of our solutions. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Nicholas Morgenstern. I'm a medical doctor by training. I did then my PhD in neuroscience, where I worked for more than 20 years in basic research, doing a lot of studying connectivity in the brain, how different areas of the brain talk to each other, using electrophysiology and optogenetics to map brain circuits. And since the beginning of this year, I started working at VirtualLeap as a lead neuroscientist. That's what I do in the company. I lead the research and part of the development also in the company.
Fantastic! Thank you so much for that. It's great to hear that you have such industry experience bringing into VirtualLeap, and it'd be interesting to know how that falls into VirtualLeap's upcoming and then also release solutions. So let's get an intro into enhanced VR and also CogniClear, perhaps where they land in their sort of levels of development, and from that research background you both mentioned, how is that playing a role in creating these innovative healthcare solutions?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with a little intro. So at VirtualLeap, we're basically working at the intersection between neuroscience and virtual reality to deliver new immersive solutions that tackle the huge impact that cognitive disorders have on society nowadays. Obviously, when we're talking about cognitive disorders, age-related cognitive decline and dementia come to mind because of the huge impact that they have. But in reality, there are many other conditions and diseases in which cognition is affected. We're talking here about ADHD, autism, depression, but even others like chemo brain, so cognitive impairment due to a cancer or its treatment, and even long COVID. So there is a huge need for new solutions that can actually, in one hand, mitigate cognitive deficits or delay them if we're talking about Alzheimer's, but also new solutions that can help in a better diagnosis. And virtual reality is the perfect media to actually deliver this kind of solutions, because we're actually talking about ecologically valid scenarios that enable naturalistic interaction and in which the engagement, the motivation is a lot better. But it's also about the data that you can collect while in virtual reality. We're talking about more data, better data, and more relevant data because of the naturalistic interaction. And taking into account the advantages of virtual reality, we actually developed our initial solution that is called Inan VR. So Inan VR has been around for quite a few years, and it's a cognitive training app, virtual reality, obviously, that consists of 15 games that are all translations of validated neuropsychological tools. And the idea is to use these games either to improve your cognitive performance if you're a healthy individual, but also potentially be used as digital therapeutics. And that's actually what we've been working on in terms of validation in the last few years. So we've been partnering with institutions a little bit across the world to test the application of different subset of our games to mitigate specific cognitive deficits across different populations. So, for example, ADHD population, we published a paper last year on this, in which we were able to mitigate or to improve processing speed in this population. A couple of weeks ago, we published another research paper in which we showed that in SVR, games can actually improve inhibitory control as well as working memory in the population, young adults with intellectual disability. So our goal for Enhanced VR is to actually gather the evidence that is required for the certification as medical device to be used in the treatment of different cognitive disorders. So in the last 2 years, we've been actually working on our second product, something that will complement what is already there in VR. So as I said, one need is related to the treatment, the other one more to the diagnosis side of things. And so specifically on the Alzheimer's, the early detection of the first symptoms of cognitive impairment is key to enable early intervention for better health outcomes. The problem is that the tools at the disposal of the medical doctors actually lack the sensitivity to be able to detect the most discrete manifestations. And this is where we think that CogniClear comes in. So we took validated tests like the MOCA and the MMSE, very traditional pen and paper tests, and we transformed it into exercises in virtual reality. So currently it's still at prototype stage. We've been developing in iterative cycles in a hospital with end users here in Portugal in the context of a program by Roche and BTI, so Building Tomorrow Together Innovation in Dementia. The test, it's a self-paced test. According to our end users, is taking around 30 minutes to complete, and it tackles 14 exercises across 7 different cognitive abilities. And we hope to launch it in October for more testing. Regarding the design and the science-based design, I think I will pass the ball to Nico.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, so as Viana was mentioning, we base our game design, or if you want, our exercise design, on the intersection between neuroscience and game design. So the process we follow for designing different games is, let's say we want to make a new game that it's expected to tackle attention, for example. We go to the literature and we find in the literature the most established or well-established tests that were developed for tackling these kind of things, and that there are neuropsychological tests that are already validated. And by validated, we mean that have been used in research and in the clinical setting for a long time, and with big samples of individuals, and which affects or which are clearly detecting or targeting the areas we are interested in. And from a couple of them that we select from the literature, me as the neuroscientist in the company, I meet with the game designer in the company, and we discuss which of them have potential to become an interesting game in terms of how can we, conserving these mechanics, makes it also fun and engaging. So that is how the process happens, and we do this for different categories. As I said, we have games, or as Viviana said, we have games for memory, for attention, for problem solving, and this is like the seed from the beginning of the process. But of course, on top of this, there is also the contribution of other people in the team. There are the developers, but also the people working in the arts, that they all contribute with feedback and with their own experience to make the product better and high quality products.
Fantastic, thank you. And based on your experience and some of these pieces you note as well, talking more broadly about VR traction in healthcare, obviously that's a very broad topic and that hits multiple sectors. So I'm more specifically interested in your opinion or your thoughts about whether or not we'll see more FDA-approved XR services become commonplace. Perhaps are FDA-approved XR services commonplace in healthcare today, or do you think they will become commonplace in the future? I'm not sure who's best to kick off that answer.
Yeah, so I think as we all know, virtual reality has been around for a lot of years. I think in the last few years, and more on the entertainment side of things, I think that has been the connection that very often people do. But I do think that in terms of healthcare, we're seeing some traction right now. I think that the last time I checked the lists, I think there were around 70 devices that have been cleared or approved that used some kind of XR. So I think the list is starting to get big across different areas, physical therapy and others, orthopedics. So we're starting to see a lot of traction there. We're also starting to see reimbursement codes, specifically talking about the United States, reimbursement codes specifically for VR. We're also seeing for digital therapeutics, but specifically for VR as well. And there is a lot of different companies out there in the markets actually working on new solutions that use VR. So I think this is just the beginning. And after some hospital or clinic has a headset there, and they use it for some use case, I think it will be very easy to then start using it also for other use cases. So I think it will definitely spread, and it's a good thing, because even for the patients, I think that it might take a while for them to feel comfortable, but I think it's going to be a success, to be honest.
Nicholas, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Viana just said. I also think that they continue in the lowering of the prices of the headset and the penetration of the headsets into the people's house also, which we know that in the States it's significantly higher than in other countries, will make it easier and easier over the next years probably.
Fantastic. And then let's talk about the adoption a little bit more, and more personally from VirtualLeap's perspective. When it comes to adoption challenges, perhaps doctor or patient facing, what's VirtualLeap doing to overcome those hurdles? How are you reaching the end user for this? What is probably perceived as a slightly understated, or maybe between patients they don't know of the value of cognitive immersive training. How do you translate that from an adoption point of view?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to start, Nico, with the patient side, and then I'll tackle the doctors?
Well, I mean, we know that I honestly think that the best thing we can give to the patient is results, and as long as we can prove that with clinical trials or with evidence that what we are doing is actually working for what they need in terms of the patients, I think that's what the patients need and what the patients expect. So there's no magic here. So we need to get what they need for them to want to get that or future the products we have now or future products that will be suitable for them. I think there's no, as I said, no magic answers here.
Yeah, but in our side, it's also our responsibility as tech providers to actually match those needs. And I think that's one of the things that we've done with our product CogniClear. It has been a long process. It has been 2 years, but we started very early on going to the clinic and testing it with the end users, so older adults with and without cognitive impairments. And I can give you a very short example of what happened. So the first prototype, we went there. It was way too long. People were getting very frustrated and very exhausted. So we actually had to cut down in terms of the time of the exercises. People were not able to interact immediately with the environment around them. So we had to improve the tutorial. And then there was, we had like mechanics of interaction that varied throughout the tests. And again, we had to uniformize. And the thing is, if we didn't test this very early on, we would have gotten to the market with a product that they couldn't use. So I think it's very key that we address very early on the characteristics of the population that they're working with and involving it in the development process. I think this is key to success. This is key to adoption. So this is the patient side of things. About the doctors, I think there is still some resistance to virtual reality. Let's be very honest there. I think that you have to find your ambassadors. I think that you need to find the ones that are gonna bring your technology and that are gonna change the environment around the early adopters. And if they are successful, and I think this ties with Nico, if we show the results, if we show the improvement, if we show the satisfaction of the patients, then the others will follow. And I think that's key.
Fantastic. And my next point was going to be about research and development towards these solutions, but you answered a lot of my questions there, so I won't make you repeat yourself. The one thing I would like to ask though before we wrap up is what sort of metrics are you tracking in those research and development points? And then I also imagine there's metrics in more. Would it be commercial distribution? There'll be more metrics alongside that side of things too. So what metrics are you leveraging? Because that's a lesson that can be learned to others outside of healthcare. Healthcare is such a strong example of a XR use case. So what metrics are you getting and why?
Nico, do you want to start with the data from our
Yeah.
solutions? Yeah.
So when our users use our games, what we collect is first we have our own system of scoring and leveling. That it's a way that we have to know how well they are performing. But behind that, we have another layer with more granularity and more complexity. There are behavioral variables that we're collecting. For example, how long does it take for people to react to a certain stimulus, or how well they respond to another ones, or when they make mistakes, which kind of mistakes are you making in terms of, for example, if you need to touch a specific target while avoiding others, you make a mistake by not touching the right target, but also by touching those elements that are not the targets. And these kind of things also reveal the cognitive processes that are operating at the moment that people is performing. So we have a lot of these very, very granular and very subtle metrics that we are taking from the gameplay and that we can analyze and eventually use them as biomarkers for different cognitive impairments. And yeah, that's a very strong, it's a very important point of our games. It's a great strength that we can extract all this information from a couple of minutes of gameplay.
Generally speaking, when we're talking about development of the products, putting them in the market, obviously effectiveness is key. How well can Inans treat diseases? How well can CogniClear detect very early on the cognitive decline onset? But besides those effectiveness metrics, obviously there's also going to be health economics involved. And I think that's key for reimbursement strategies and for adoption by the hospitals and clinics. So I think that's something that we'll also need to tackle very early on, even though for CogniClear still at prototype stage, so we're still very far from the market. But I would say that market access aspects need to be taken in account and thinking about them right now.
Brilliant, thank you. That's so insightful. All the information you gave, I think, can be really taken aboard by people from various industries as well. So thank you so much for that insight. It was absolutely incredibly valuable. But just before we wrap up, is there a link? Is there a direction our readers can go to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so visit us at our website, our social media channels, and if you're interested in cognitive health, if you're a clinician, if you're an organization looking to use Inan VR or CogniClear or be part of our development processes, please reach out to us and we would love to talk to you.
Fantastic, both. Thank you both so much, I really appreciate your time. I've been Rory Greener of XR today. Thank you very much for watching.